You want to hear something that'll stop you cold? Sit with this for a minute, because what I'm about to expose, what I'm about to lay bare, it's going to unlock something deep inside you that you've been trying to ignore for far too long. The ones who broke you, the ones who celebrated your pain, the ones who vanished when you needed them most, the ones who poisoned your name while you were barely breathing. Yeah, them. They just had a conversation. And you know what? They weren't plotting against you this time. No. They were doing something far more revealing, far more desperate, far more pathetic. They were figuring out how to slide back into your world, how to position themselves near your energy, how to somehow, some way, crawl their way back into your atmosphere before you become completely unreachable. Because somewhere between your collapse and your comeback, somewhere between your darkness and your rebirth, you became something they never saw coming. You became the ruler, the force, the untouchable, the one, and now they're scared. Scared not because you're vengeful, but because you're at peace. Scared not because you seek payback, but because you don't even think about it. Scared because the person they shattered is dead, and the person standing here now barely recalls their existence without trying. You moved past the resentment, you moved past the hurt, you moved past them entirely, and that's what haunts them at night. Because people can survive your rage, but they can't survive your calm. They can handle your fury, but they can't handle your disappearance. So yeah, they had a conversation. Maybe it wasn't in some boardroom with coffee and notes, but it happened. In their texts, in their calls, in those quiet moments when your name drops and the room shifts. They've been observing you, studying you, following your every step like you're some kind of mystery they can't solve. And you are. You are the mystery, the exception, the one who wasn't supposed to survive, but didn't just survive, came back radiant, came back free, came back impossible to reach. Let's strip away the noise for a second. Let's get to the bone. They didn't just wound you, they analyzed you while they wounded you. They watched how you reacted. They saw you cry. They heard your voice break when you tried to defend yourself. And they enjoyed it. They felt dominant. They felt powerful. Because damaging someone who's open, someone who's raw, someone who's genuine, that fed them in ways nothing else could. You were their practice target, their emotional game, their evidence that they mattered. But here's what they missed. Here's the piece they never calculated. You didn't remain down. You didn't remain shattered. You didn't become the warning story they needed you to be so they could justify their own emptiness. Instead, you did something they can't forgive. You grew. You transformed. You converted every wound into wisdom, every betrayal into rocket fuel, every tear into molten steel that reconstructed you from the core. And now you move differently, speak differently, exist differently, and they sense it. Oh, they sense it. Every time your name surfaces, every time someone mentions what you're accomplishing now, every time they see your presence and realize you're not even glancing backward, that's when the fear kicks in. That's when their group chats explode. That's when the conversation starts. Because they thought destroying you would keep you beneath them permanently. They thought they could keep you contained, keep you hungry, keep you desperate for the scraps of attention they used to toss your way. But you quit begging, and that's when you became a threat. A threat not because you're aggressive or vicious, a threat because you're liberated. And liberated people, truly liberated people, they dismantle the whole system. They make everyone else question why they're still trapped. They make the comfortable squirm. They make the fake feel naked. They make the players realize their games no longer work. And that's you now. You're the living proof that survival isn't just achievable, it's guaranteed for those who refuse to surrender on anyone else's timeline. You refused, and now they're suffering the consequences. So what did they say in this conversation? Let me sketch it for you. It started innocent like it always does. Someone dropped your name, maybe casually, maybe with a smirk, but then someone else chimed in. Did you see what they're doing now? Did you catch that thing they pulled off? And suddenly the vibe changed. Suddenly everyone went silent for a beat too long because the reality crashed into them simultaneously. You're not drowning anymore. You're not just getting by. You're flourishing. And worse for them, you're doing it solo. That's when the backpedaling began. I always knew they were special. I always had their back, honestly. I never really doubted them. Lies, complete lies, but essential lies. Because if they confess the truth, if they admit they were mistaken, if they admit they underestimated you, then they have to confront the fact that they're not the champions in this narrative. They're the enemies. And enemies don't get forgiveness when the hero stops caring if they breathe or not. So they rewrite the past. They deceive themselves. They persuade each other that they weren't so terrible. But underneath, in the stillness of their private thoughts, they understand. They know precisely what they inflicted. They know the nights you broke down. They know the moments you extended your hand and got emptiness. They know the times you were drowning and they chose to look away. They know. And that awareness, that burden, that humiliation, it's devouring them because you didn't just endure their violence. You became someone they now look up to, someone they now covet, someone they now pitifully, hopelessly want to claim connection with. And that's the sweetest irony of all. Here's the reality about people who annihilate you, then try to celebrate you. They don't genuinely want to celebrate you. They want to own the story. They want to stand close enough that when anyone asks about your achievements, they can declare, "Oh, I was there, I knew them, I supported them." They want to insert themselves into your journey as allies when truthfully they were the roadblocks, the villains, the ones who attempted to erase you, but you refused to stay erased. You erupted through the concrete, and now they want to claim they watered you. Don't allow it. Don't you dare allow it. Because this conversation they held, this discussion centered on you, it's not rooted in respect, it's not rooted in affection, it's not rooted in authentic appreciation, it's about gaining entry, it's about closeness to your fire because theirs has faded, it's about feeding off your spirit because they squandered theirs on bitterness, envy, and narrow-minded brutality. They don't want to honor you, they want to consume you, they want to station themselves near enough that they can take credit for your radiance. And let me clarify something about these kinds of individuals. They'll arrive with apologies that sound genuine. They'll send words that appear sincere. They'll speak about how much they've matured, how much they've evolved, how they finally see what they destroyed, and portions of it might even ring true. But here's what matters. Transformed people don't advertise their change. They embody it. Authentic evolution doesn't require announcements. True regret doesn't arrive with strings attached. If they've genuinely transformed, they'll honor your space, they'll respect your walls, they'll allow you freedom without attempting to re-enter your reality. But most haven't transformed. Most are simply responding to your rise. They're not sorry they damaged you. They're sorry you triumphed without them. They're not regretful about yesterday. They're terrified about tomorrow because they see your direction and they're horrified of being forgotten. So they panic, they contact you, they attempt reconnection, they hunt for reactions, they leave breadcrumbs. They circle your atmosphere like insects around light, praying you'll grant them entry. And some of you consider it. You consider it because you're compassionate, because you value redemption, because you recall how rejection felt and you refuse to inflict that on others. But let me remind you of something essential. You didn't reject them. They rejected you. You didn't desert them. They deserted you. You didn't demolish the bond. They demolished it. And now that you've reconstructed yourself, now that you've become someone worth knowing, they want admission, not because they treasure you, because they dread insignificance, and your existence makes them feel significant again. So here's your move. Nothing, absolutely nothing. You don't respond, you don't clarify, you don't justify, you don't argue. You simply continue forward, continue constructing, continue ascending, because the ultimate answer to people who attempted to erase you is a life so complete, so rich, so commanding that their void doesn't even appear on your radar. You don't need confrontation. You don't need exposure. You don't need validation. Your life, your triumph, your serenity, that's the evidence. That's the declaration. That's the crown they'll never grasp. Let them conduct their conversations. Let them speak your name with that blend of remorse and jealousy. Let them question your methods. Let them dissect every update, every action, every breath. Because while they're fixated on you, you're not remotely considering them. You've surpassed their wavelength. You've risen beyond their plane. You're functioning in a dimension they can't reach, can't decode, can't penetrate, and that's your permanent residence. Unreachable, untouchable, undeniable. Now let's examine what truly occurs in these conversations, these hidden discussions about you, because it's not simply admiration, it's not simply regret. There's something uglier brewing. There's bitterness. Bitterness that you succeeded without their consent. Bitterness that you didn't require their validation. Bitterness that you proved their judgment worthless because when they attempted to fracture you, they believed they were exposing your flaws. They assumed they were revealing the imposter, but they only revealed themselves. And now they must carry that. They must carry the knowledge that they misjudged you, that their assessment was garbage, that their cruelty was baseless. And harder still, they must observe you winning while they're locked in identical cycles, identical conflicts, identical microscopic lives. You expanded, they stagnated. You ascended, they remained frozen. You multiplied, they turned toxic. And that toxicity, that's what truly fuels these conversations. Because if they can approach you again, if they can somehow link themselves to your accomplishments, perhaps they can fool themselves into believing they weren't wrong. Perhaps they can convince themselves they always supported you. But you possess the truth. You experience their abandonment. You remember their quietness. You wear the marks from their speech, their conduct, their treachery. And while forgiveness holds nobility, reconnection remains a choice. You don't owe them proximity to the version they tried to execute. You don't owe them chairs at the table they destroyed. You don't owe them a single thing because you've already paid. You survived their hurricane. You rebuilt in their vacancy. And now the existence you've crafted, the peace you've secured, the strength you possess, it belongs to you, earned through blood, defended fiercely, held sacred. So when they reach out, and they absolutely will, when they attempt to slip back in with harmless texts and friendly performances, remember this: they're not reaching toward you. They're reaching toward the concept of you, the accomplished you, the luminous you, the unreachable you. They don't desire the authentic you. They couldn't manage the authentic you when you were vulnerable. They can't manage the authentic you now that you're armored. They crave the version they can boast about accessing, the version that elevates them through association, but that's not connection. That's parasitic. And you've endured enough parasites, enough users, enough playing background character in someone else's salvation story. This is your narrative. You're the protagonist. And in your narrative, the people who attempted to destroy you don't receive redemption. They don't receive resolution. They don't receive reconciliation with you. They receive observation from afar. They receive consequences for their decisions. They receive the vision of what they sacrificed. And that is the conclusion they've earned, because here's what escapes their understanding. You didn't construct this person to prove them incorrect. You didn't rise to generate their remorse. You didn't succeed to claim vengeance. You accomplished it because no alternative existed. You accomplished it because remaining destroyed meant perishing. You accomplished it because something within you, something primal and indestructible, refused to allow their violence to author your finale. You rose because rising was survival. And now that you occupy this space, now that you're anchored in your authority, they want to pretend they predicted it, but they didn't. They wagered against you. They dismissed you. They erased you. And now they're desperately rewriting reality because your success exposes their foolishness. It illuminates their blindness. It demonstrates their failure to recognize genuine power when it stood before them. And that's not your burden. That's theirs. You don't need to comfort their conscience. You don't need to dissolve their shame. You don't need to pardon them. You need to guard your tranquility. And sometimes, usually, guarding your tranquility demands keeping certain individuals at eternal distance. So yes, they conducted a conversation. They analyzed you. They planned their approach. They designed their return. And while they invested energy there, you were existing. You were creating, you were evolving, you were flourishing, you were executing precisely what they claimed was impossible. You were demonstrating that their perspectives, their conclusions, their malice, none possess the authority to label you. You labeled yourself, you selected yourself, you rescued yourself. And now you're harvesting the benefits of that selection. Let them observe, let them contemplate. Let them ache, but refuse them re-entry. Because the barrier you erected against them, that wasn't malicious. That was survival instinct. That wasn't retaliation. That was intelligence. That wasn't coldness. That was brilliance. You discovered painfully that not everyone merits access to you. You discovered that certain people only appreciate you fractured because your fractures validate their wholeness. But you're no longer fractured. And they can't process that, so they'll attempt. Oh, they'll attempt everything. They'll utilize shared connections. They'll manufacture circumstances for accidental encounters. They'll engage your content. They'll plant comments. They'll execute anything for your acknowledgement. And each attempt will trigger that small pull, that small whisper saying, perhaps I should acknowledge them. Perhaps I should demonstrate maturity. Perhaps I should offer another opportunity. But let me emphasize something. Demonstrating maturity doesn't mean welcoming people who wounded you back inside. It means possessing sufficient maturity to release them without resentment. You can forgive them while maintaining distance. You can desire their well-being while protecting your energy. You can recognize their humanity while declining engagement because forgiveness serves you, reconnection serves them, and you owe them nothing. You don't owe them your hours, your spirit, your focus, or your company. You owe yourself protection. You owe yourself tranquility. You owe yourself the territory to continue expanding without those who attempted to stunt that expansion.